Today's talk is going to be about the Koshas. So thank you for being here today, even though we're at your home. But and I love the Christmas decorations behind you. It's very festive. So I thought we would start with either you can help define the Koshas, like what is a Kosha, and then I have some translations which you can comment on. But
yeah, it's Koshas are mentioned in Taittiriya Upanishad, and like I learned from Swami Dayanandji, many times when people who don't study Sanskrit give a translation to Upanishads, they are not quite accurate, and sometimes they make serious mistakes. So, the word kosha means something that covers or hides. Like if you put a sword in the
sheath.
That is, the sheath is the kosha. And in most translations I have seen, before I met Swami Dayanandji, that word is completely ignored, that it is hiding something. Instead it is given something like, it's a body, as though it is real. Like first kosha is Annamaya kosha. And the translation you would see is that this body is made up by Anna, meaning food. Okay? So this is the outermost body, and then there is inner body and so on. But it doesn't point out what does the word kosha indicate.
Interesting. Okay, so yes, that is my understanding of the first kosha. So if it's a sheath covering that, can you expound on that?
Yeah, it's hiding your real nature from you. My attachment to the physical body prevents me from seeing who I am.
So is a kosha something that we need to overcome, or is it more of a container?
No, kosha is something that we need to understand. What is it hiding? Overcome in the sense that my ignorance with relation to kosha. When I'm attached to a lot of physical things, including this body, then that attachment prevents me from seeing who I am.
Is that attachment the same as, or is it slightly different if you're over-identifying with your physical self? If you mistakenly think this is all you are, is this. Is that the same?
That's an extreme part of it.
Okay.
But even people who don't over-identify themselves with the body still are concerned much more about the body. When you compare the body with other bodies, they think they are isolated and separate from the rest, which is a mistake.
But in some scientific ways, we are separated from each other.
We are
You're
separate.
in this form and I'm in this form, and what's between us?
Now that word that you use, form, is very important. Very, very, very important. There is a form and a label. In Sanskrit it's called nama, rupa. Rupa means a form, nam means a name. Everything has different nam, rupa. But it has to do with the form, not the substance. A good example of that would be, take ocean, and there are waves in the ocean. There is a small wave, there is a big wave, and there's definitely different identity of every wave and surf and so on. But it's water.
Yes, but water's more permeable than, I can put my hand through water, I can't put my hand through you.
No, I mean, the example there sort of, is to indicate that there is an essence behind whatever outer form is. So, another example given is, they like to give example of a clay pot. Every pot is different. And in some sense, it has a different identity for sure, different use for sure. But it's clay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, if a term is used like this is clay pot, strictly speaking, that would make clay an adjective. It's not clay pot, it's potty clay.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's the translation. Some languages would say it that way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So is our physical form the kosha itself?
Yes,
The first kosha?
the body is the kosha.
Mm-hmm.
That body then hides the reality from me because I'm so much attached to the body.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in regards to how the Upanishads present it, are they saying it in a way like this is the first thing that you have to overcome? Is it like a ladder of...
See, Upanishads don't generally explain things, they just make a statement.
Right.
Okay.
Frustratingly.
Why and wherefore is part of the teaching. Like an Upanishad would say, you must always speak the truth. Okay? It doesn't explain why. That explanation has to come from other understanding of who am I.
Okay, so that's why I'm here asking you questions. So if, for example, if someone's over-identifying with their body and they mistakenly think that's all they are, is the human body, I'm going to ask the same question in a different way, is that something that you need to overcome to get to the next kosha?
Overcome in the sense of understand.
Yeah.
Okay. The next kosha would be more subtle.
Okay.
Okay. You don't look at subtlety first. First look at the grosser mistake. And body can be extended even to further, like I'm attached to my motor car. I have definitely seen at least one person where, in England, he starts the car doesn't start, doesn't work. He gets out and he kicks the car. This is a little too much attachment to.
Yes. Okay. So, and is the hatha yoga practice that we do helping us to do that, or that's one of the?
It can be both ways.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. If it helps you to have physical health, which in turn helps the mental health, which helps the breath and so on, then it's working correctly. But if you get into a competitive mood,
right,
then it's not helping you. It's making you more of an individual.
Or as you like to say, my triangle's better than your
My
triangle.
triangle is
That's
better
a problem.
than your triangle, yeah.
Okay.
And even great teachers use that kind of term. As far as teaching of Hatha Yoga is concerned, they are very good teachers.
Yeah.
But the approach is wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
You want to make this body healthy by practice of yoga so that it can help you to support looking at the mind and so on. Yeah?
Okay, I want to back up before we go to the next kosha, because I want to try to understand. So it's a system. The koshas are a system, and we've talked about the vayus and we've talked about the chakras, which are different systems. So the chakra system is giving us something to focus on. The vayus are giving us something to look for. How would you say the koshas are different from those systems?
It's a different model.
Yeah, right.
And any model that can work for anybody. For different people, different models would make sense. Or for the same person, every model they look at gives them a little deeper insight. Okay? The question behind every single model that is used is it addressing the question of understanding who am I?
I think that I understand that. But with the chakras, you can say, okay, I'm going to look at the second chakra, it's in this location, I'm going to put my mind there. And with the vayus, at least my experience with it, is it's something that you notice and you can enhance it or detract from it. So for example, like if my apana vayu is not flowing so well, I can do something with my yoga practice to help it flow better. So with a kosha, and we're starting with the first one of the outer body, is it, it's different, this is my thought, is that it's kind of outer, the whole outer to the whole inner, as opposed to the different ones?
The term outer and inner can be confusing because people then think of it as something physical, layer after layer.
Yeah.
It's not that. like coming back again to the ocean.
Yeah.
Okay, water is not inside the wave. Okay, that would be a sort of. It's not that there is a wave form and inside there is water. There is no inside.
Right.
It's the essence of it.
So if one decides they want to use the koshas for better understanding, what's a good approach for that?
The approach would be look at the gross way that you are attached
Okay.
to, or you are confused in
Okay.
more gross way, like we already say.
Right.
Okay.
So you're getting attached to the idea of I can move my prana and that's going to give me something that I'm attached to, which is a better,
Yes.
longer life. Okay. But I mean, how can you separate that from, for example, I have a little challenge in my back, and you said, have you tried to work with it pranically? And you described, how to use it pranayama, trying to work on it rather than the physical. So if I am working like that, is that attachment?
It's attachment if you think that that is real.
Okay, say more. I think it is real. How is it not real?
If it's that real, then why does it disappear when you are fast asleep?
Well, I don't know that. I mean, I go somewhere else, so my body still might have that challenge.
Let's say a thorn pricks my foot.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'm here struggling with, I got a thorn in my foot, it hurts. Okay? And I'm kind of getting attached to that pain.
Yes.
And then house catches fire. Okay? I suddenly completely forget the thorn and I run out. Has the pain actually disappeared? My identity with the pain disappeared. Physically, the thorn is still there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. And so how would one work with pranamaya kosha? Is it pretty much pranayama? Is that?
No, any kind of energy that is in the body that then makes me attached to that particular expression of the energy. Okay. And in the process, I think that this is real.
So is it wrong to say I'm doing postures to help my annamaya kosha and I'm doing my pranayama to help my pranamaya kosha? Is that a ridiculous statement?
No, but it can be misinterpreted. Let's look at truth. What is truth? I heard a little poetry that was very beautiful. It says, if the truth can increase or decrease, then it is not the truth. Lie can have infinite borders, no limitation. But truth cannot increase or decrease.
Because there's an absolute truth.
It's an absolute truth.
When you're talking about the bigger questions.
Yes. Now, the fact that a thorn hurts my foot is not a lie, but it's not absolute truth.
What is absolute truth around the thorn?
Nothing has happened
Nothing has happened to you.
to me,
Right.
to the real me.
To the real you. Okay. Okay.
Thorn is pricking my foot. I translate that into it pricking me. That me is considered to be this body, mind, sense complex, which is completely unreal. Completely unreal in relation to consciousness, which doesn't change.
Conceptually, I understand what you're saying, but being in a physical form that experiences pain, so if it's not real, then why do I have to go through it?
See, let me compare that to another thing. I have heard about nuclear physics. Today I know nothing about it. If I begin to study it using mathematics and calculus and so on, okay, I'm going to find many steps which are difficult to understand because I don't have the preparation for it.
I see.
So today when I feel like, this is real, my body is real, I feel real, to learn that that's a mistake, in the beginning it will be an intellectual thing only.
So what is the point of all this? Like, why do I have to go through the physical form and then I have to overcome the physical form and I have to overcome the over-identification with my pranic body?
The point is, you are looking for happiness that does not change.
To what end?
Why do you look for anything?
Curiosity. Wanting to know the truth, wanting to know the absolute truth.
Yeah, but knowing that will do what for you?
Satisfy my curiosity.
No, it makes you happy.
Yes, okay. That's true.
Happiness is the very nature of consciousness. Okay? My attachment to various things gets me away from that understanding.
Okay.
The peculiar thing here is, when we come to it, even the mind that understands is not really understanding. Okay? So we use, in language, we use words like my heart understands, which is better than the mind understanding.
Right.
Mind will stick to logic, or false logic even.
So when you say mind, you're thinking of the thinking mind.
Thinking.
Or you're speaking of the thinking mind. And that is the next kosha, is it not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So manomaya kosha. Can you define that for us and say a little more?
It's my mind makes up my sense of who I am.
Right.
And although I think I read somewhere there that the mind is everywhere in the body. Mind is wherever the mind goes. If my mind is in the moon, the mind is in the moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not restricted to physical body.
So the definition that I had written down that I don't think were that impressed with. Within the vital force is yet another body, the one made up of thought energy. It fills the two denser bodies and has the same shape. Those who understand and control the mental body are no longer afflicted by fear.
Now, it's not restricted to physical body.
It's everything.
It's everything. Whatever mind thinks of, mind is there.
Mm-hmm. So, given that we live in a society, we live in a culture, we're born into a family, and that we are shaped by that, how is it that someone can overcome all of that habituation of over-identification?
A lot of good study, proper teacher, and then eventually meditation. I like the word meditation. It begins with mad.
Med, like medicine?
Not medicine.
Mad, like angry? Oh, crazy. Like crazy, okay. Is that how you view meditation?
No, you understand that is what you're trying to overcome in meditation.
I see, the madness. Yes. I heard one person say the sole purpose of the mind is to drive you to spiritual practice, because it'll drive you insane.
Look at something like, when I was a little boy, somebody gave me a bicycle, and I was very attached to it. It felt like this is the ultimate happiness. For how long? Today that bicycle doesn't matter to me at all. In which case, the happiness attached to that was created by my mind.
Mm-hmm. And the unhappiness, if it was taken away from you, is also created by the mind.
It's also created by the mind. And that's a very sort of, very crude example. But if I look at my life, many, many things that appeared to be very important at some point. Okay? It's not that they were not important. What I didn't realize was that these would remain important permanently. That was never the case.
Okay, so we're putting a little bit of things together with asana and the first kosha, and pranayama with the second kosha, and so you're saying meditation is good to address this particular kosha?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to say anything else about it?
Well, mind, as we use in manomaya kosha, has to do more with the feeling faculty.
So emotions.
Emotions. Okay, next kosha would be
Vijnanamaya.
Huh?
Vijan?
Vijnanmaya.
Vijnan.
Vijnan means knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. So that's more to do with intellect.
So that's more like reading spiritual books, or I always get a little if you could say a little bit more between those two, like how is that what are the distinctions between those two koshas?
What I feel emotionally is governed by my desires. Okay? What I look at something intellectually, using my intellect, is not governed by emotion. It is governed by logic.
But because we're looking at this slightly as a hierarchy, maybe, it seems like it's putting intellect over emotion, which I'm not sure if that's true.
It is true.
Really?
Yeah.
Say more about that.
Very often you do emotionally something that you later look at and your intellect says you shouldn't have done that.
And sometimes we have a feeling about something and our intellect overrides it and we say, oh, I had a feeling this was
That's
bad
fear.
or good.
No, that falls under fear.
I see. Okay.
Okay. Properly used intellect will not misguide you. If it makes a mistake, it is because of lack of intellect.
And so how does one improve on their intellect, like from a yogic perspective?
By learning what intellect teaches intellect.
Is it reading books? Is it seeking out the right teacher? Is it a practice?
Reading books, examining my own life properly. Many books help you, guide you. The ultimate book is you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So someone who is wanting to work with the koshas, and particularly this kosha, what would you...
Meaning which kosha?
The
Vijnanamaya kosha?
Yeah, like where would you point them? To the Upanishads or...
Again, to a good teacher who interprets the Upanishads correctly.
And who is that? That's not so easy to find.
That's not so easy to find.
Do you have anyone you could recommend?
Yes and no. You need a teacher to start off. Okay? Ultimately, a good teacher will tell you that you have got enough information. Now go meditate, work on yourself. Okay? That's a much higher step.
So it's meditation again, but at a higher level.
At a higher level.
Right.
In Vedic teachings, they call it nididhyasana, okay, as opposed to dhyana. Dhyana is necessary, meditation. But then there is nididhyasana, which combines application of what you learned in dhyana to life.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm sitting in meditation and my knee hurts, that's my physical body. Then my mind going, my knee hurts, my knee hurts, my knee hurts. That's my thinking mind, or is that more my emotional mind?
My feeling mind. Yes.
My feeling mind, because I'm like, I want to get away from this pain. So if I was working with the intellect, what would I do with that?
You would see that if this pose that I'm sitting in is going to destroy my knee, I'm destroying the very vehicle that will help you to get further. So you have to take care of the vehicle first.
But how do I know it's that as opposed to it's just my whole system going, I don't really want to be sitting here, so my knee hurts, so it's distracting me, and I can get up because my knee hurts.
Now there the intellect would help you to say, why are you translating this little pain in the knee to whole of me?
So would you say is more discernment?
Yes, which comes from intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also with the pain in the knee, like I'm sure you have seen this in yoga class, okay, the mind will exaggerate the pain.
Yeah.
That you have, with very little experience, you have real possibility of saying, I can diminish it. The question becomes, why does the mind exaggerate a pain? I don't want pain. My mind has to work for me. And yet that mind works against me, and whatever little pain there is, it gives this much bigger magnification.
Right. Well, having taken some meditation classes, it's also a way of me avoiding going more inwards. It's pulling me out to the outer layers, if you will.
Correct, but before that, it's correct that it pulls you out. But before that, why does the mind exaggerate it?
You tell me. I don't know.
Because mind has learned something wrong from very early childhood. I am a baby. I am hungry or wet or whatever. I cry a little. I express unhappiness. Okay? And I don't get attention. What is the next thing the baby does?
Cries louder.
Cries louder. That's the wrong learning. In the sense that when I cry louder, I get the attention I want. Okay?
But what's a baby that's basically can't speak and say, hey, I'm wet, can you change me? The baby's just doing what it should do.
Yeah.
So it's not getting enough care. It's not getting the, I see.
Which means to get more care or more attention,
Right.
I need to cry louder. That's what the baby has learned.
Right, but I don't want to say the problems with the baby. The problems with the person caring for the baby needs to be, no?
No, there is no problem with the baby. None at all. Okay? Baby has learned something wrong. That's the problem.
Right. That's what I mean. Right. But that isn't caused by the baby. It's caused by
No, it's
care.
not caused by the baby. It's the nature of things. Okay? In the process, I have learned something that is not correct. Take another example. I am a 4 or 5 year old boy walking with my dad, in a shopping area, and I see a toy in the showcase.
Yeah.
Somebody is selling that toy. And my mind completely says that all that this giant that I'm walking with has to do is part with some green paper, which is completely useless to the child, and I can get the toy. Let's say the dad buys the toy for me. I become very happy. What have I learned in the process? There's nothing wrong. What I have learned is wrong. That I wanted something, when I got it, I became happy. The fact is, no, that never happened. It's a misunderstanding of what happened.
So what really happened?
What happened was, as a conscious being, I am happy. Without any reason. Just being conscious, I am happy. Looking at the toy created a desire. That desire then interfered with the happiness. When I got the toy, I did not become happy. I became non-wanting.
Okay, and so is that a monomaya kosha
Yes.
issue?
Yeah.
Because it's desire.
It's desire.
And so with intellect, you could discern that what you just said, that it wasn't, none of that was true, or it was an inverse of really what happened.
I am a happy being.
Right.
Okay, that center is lost, and I become attached to. I want to go to a yoga class. That will make me happy. Not really. Your desire to go to the yoga class is not wrong, but the interpretation is wrong.
That it will make me happy.
That will make me happy.
So what's the right interpretation?
Right interpretation is that my mind has a desire.
So just to see it as a desire.
Just to see it as desire.
And then to realize that it could be good for your body, mind,
yeah,
spirit.
and not
teacher.
even struggle to let go of the desire. Just see the very nature of desire. You don't have to drop the desire. This is often taught. Give up your desire. No, you understand the desire. It will drop off you. You try to drop the desire is really a very silly exercise. When you are lying in bed, everything is quiet and the clock is going tick, 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 tick. Try to drop that desire. Clock is not going to stop. That's what the clock does. Understand it, that it's not a problem. Mind is making it a problem. Let me give you the example of something relatively simple. Then we can get to Koshas.
Okay.
If you look at most holy scriptures, almost all of them talk about bad behavior that should be avoided. Okay? But you look at something like Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't address that at all. Bhagavad Gita is intended for somebody who is a good person, but in spite of being a good person, is confused about what the correct action is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You can't take that book and say, use this for the person who is abused. Okay? It's not meant for that person. Somebody who is being sexually abused cannot read Bhagavad Gita and get anything out of it, other than get very annoyed.
Right.
So when you use an instrument to get to a higher level, you can't use that instrument then to get down to a much lower level. Somebody being abused like that is a much lower level, and it's a problem with the society. Very different kind of problem. With koshas, the same thing happens. If you want to study koshas, the interest has got to be in a person who is already at a certain level.
I see. Okay.
To drop it down to how will it abuse to somebody who is at a much lower level is not relevant.
Apply. Okay. Okay. So the model of the koshas is really for a serious practitioner who has overcome some of these.
Some basic things are already there.
Right.
He's still confused about something, about
Okay.
his attachment to various
Okay.
things. Okay.
Okay.
That's where the koshas
Okay,
would help.
that's helpful. Okay, Anandamaya kosha. Hidden inside a yet subtler body composed of pure joy, it pervades the other bodies and shares the same shape. It is experienced as happiness and bliss. Do you disagree with that definition?
Completely.
Okay, say why and tell us what your definition is.
But we already said in some sense.
Yeah,
That sort of bliss that comes and goes is not real bliss. The point is, I'm attached to pleasure.
mm-hmm.
Okay? That pleasure comes and goes, which means my attachment is to something that, from the enlightened point of view, is wrong. It's not wrong to have a pleasure.
Right.
What is wrong is my attachment to it.
And possible ways of trying to get more of it.
I get a high by, let's say, smoking some marijuana.
Yeah,
And I see that this gives me pleasure.
right.
What do I want? I want more and more of it. That attachment is a problem. Occasionally to smoke something, I would say, is not wrong. Okay? Eat some jalebi or whatever.
Right.
Have some pleasure of senses. But don't get attached to it. I like some sweet, like jalebi I just mentioned, an Indian sweet. Okay? You put jalebi in front of me, a warm jalebi, and I would keep eating it. Knowing it is wrong, knowing this is going to cause damage to my body, I still keep eating it. That is attachment.
Okay, and so when you do that, knowing that it's not the best thing for you, do you then forgive yourself?
No, don't blame yourself. Just
Don't
understand.
blame yourself,
Yeah.
just stop. Okay.
Just understand that you did something for which there is a price to be paid.
Okay. So then will you say a little bit more about Anandamaya kosha? It's not pleasure versus bliss. Those are two different things.
See, we began with attachment to the body, which
Yeah.
is very gross. Attachment to pleasure is much, much more subtle. Okay? Even sort of great, intelligent people are attached to pleasure.
Right.
And in the beginning, when they learn that this attachment causes problem, they make the pleasure wrong. There's nothing wrong with the pleasure.
It's the attachment to
It's the
pleasure.
attachment to it. Swami Dayananda would say, have some more pleasure.
Right.
Yeah? Don't get attached to it. Which means when you don't get that pleasure, don't take it out on somebody else or something else.
Right. So that's very different than the most subtle of all the koshas.
Yes.
And how can the yogi, the earnest practitioner, help to experience that?
At a very basic level, the person has to learn pleasure that comes and goes should not be called a truth. Okay? As I said earlier, truth cannot change. Now, do I have a pleasure of just being? At a deeper level, even that comes from the mind. Okay? The pleasure that comes from just being and comes from your heart, as it were, cannot be changed.
So if there's a locale for the Anandamaya kosha, it's the heart. If
It's the
there was a
heart.
locale.
If there is a locale. There really isn't locale. But if one wants to look for a locale or work at it, then yes, heart is the locale. Not the mind,
Right.
not the brain.
So we've got 5 sheaths, and you said that the sheaths are something that we need, that are hiding the truth. But how is Anandamaya kosha hiding the truth?
by attachment to that.
Okay,
In each case, it
I
is the attachment.
I see. Okay. And I've also read other interpretations of it that they all kind of interpenetrate each other.
Yeah, that's true. Whatever I experience with the body is going to give me pleasure or not. So they are intermingled. To understand, some logic has been created that this is purely physical, this is purely mental, this is purely emotional, this is purely intellectual.
There's no such thing, really.
Yeah. There's no such thing.
Right. Okay. So, given what you were saying about the koshas, about like someone who's in an extreme situation, like for the average yoga practitioner, the person who's going to yoga class 2 or 3 times a week, maybe they have a home practice, maybe they actually have a pranayama practice.
Average yoga practitioner has to completely understand that I'm an average practitioner.
Okay.
Do not expect maximum result.
Well, so my question is the kosha system at all useful to that person?
Basic understanding is yes.
Because there's somewhere to go.
Because there's somewhere to go.
So can you say what would be the ideal situation of practitioner that the koshas would be the most beneficial?
Let's say a good practitioner who sincerely practices not just 3 days but 7 days a week. Right? That person is going to come across situations that make him or her unhappy. That person then has to question, like, what is it that really makes me unhappy? What is the attachment that makes me unhappy? That would be related to one of the koshas.
So, in other words, like average practitioner, really the kosha systems, it's nice to know about them, but if they're not willing to up their game, it's not really helpful.
Don't waste your time.
Okay, that was my question, yeah. And then given the other systems that I mentioned, the chakras and the vayus, would you say that's the same?
It's exactly the same.
Okay.
Every system within the whole broad thing is intended to lead you towards enlightenment, which is clear understanding of who am I. Okay? Confusion with that has to be addressed by different models.
And you find in your life as a yoga teacher, different people are just attracted to different systems? They're no better or worse, higher, lower?
I would not suggest to anybody to jump from one system to the other.
Right.
Pick one and really get your teeth into it.
Right. My question is more, do you see certain people attracted to one system over another, or do you see more people attracted to the chakras because that's in the mainstream and so people are more familiar with it? Any observations like that?
Personally, and maybe because of who I am and the kind of person I am, I find people getting attached to a particular teacher. To pay respect to a teacher, to look after teacher's needs so he can help others is good and required. But over-attachment to the teacher is not.
So your answer to my question is they're not attached to a system, they're more attached to the teacher. And so if the teacher is promoting one system over another, they're going to go with that.
Yeah.
So in my experience as your student, you definitely teach workshops on the chakras, and you definitely talk about the vayus, and occasionally you talk about the koshas. So I'm asking you as a practitioner in your practice, do you use one more over the other, or do you have a preference of being more attracted to one system, and if so, why?
If I'm unhappy with something, I look at the cause of that unhappiness. If it is related to my back hurting, then I think working with Annama Kosha would be important. How do I address that? I may address it through prana. Okay? Basically, why is my mind so attached to this pain is what I would look at.
And which system would you say that is? The koshas?
That is more to Koshas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I find that, let me work at it using my knowledge of chakras, then I don't see anything wrong with that.
So you're saying it's okay to do kind of I'm going to take 2 from column A and 2 from column B and kind of work with them all together?
It's okay because I'm dealing with a particular attachment, particular pain. Okay? If I want to get much deeper into it, towards enlightenment, see, when there is a body pain like that, I'm not asking myself, who am I? Okay?
Right.
But if the question is, there is no other particular problem going on, but I don't feel so-called enlightened still, then you have to pick one system and really dig your teeth into that.
And so, which one have you chosen?
I would choose Koshas.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you elaborate why?
Because that's what appeals to me most.
Because it's
Because
inquiry?
of the way my mind is.
Would you say it's more inquiry? Like looking at your actions?
No, they are all. Even chakra system is inquiry.
Yes, but there's slight differences in...
No, see, the problem that I find with chakra system is that there is indication that there is a lower chakra here,
Right.
there's this chakra there. My intelligence says there are no chakras in the body like that. So it's not a model that really works for me. Because my mind, being an engineer's mind, keeps asking like, where on earth is the chakra? It's definitely not in a physical body. So my relation to chakra system is a little skewed because of that. But if I think of Annamaya Kosha, I don't have to go anywhere. It's here. I can see it. Manomaya Kosha, I know my mind is here. Pranamaya Kosha, I know the energies are here. So I don't have to look for a location of that.
Okay.
So it's an engineer would like that more.
Because it permeates the whole rather than the specific locales of the chakras.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And how is so? Can you just say a little bit how that's different? The koshas are different from the vayus.
Vayus, again, if I want to work with vayu, it begins with there are 5 major vayus, 5 minor vayus. Of this, as an early practitioner, I am more able to feel pranamaya kosha, pranavayu, and apanvayu at the most.
Right.
I don't really feeling of the rest of the vayus.
Mm-hmm.
So while I can understand the logic of the vayus, its location, feeling of actuality is not as clear to me as the koshas.
Okay. All right. So you're okay. So just to wrap it up, you're saying for the average yoga practitioner, the koshas aren't that helpful, but you should know about them because that gives you a place to go if you become more interested. That your preferred method of inquiry is the koshas. If I could
I
call it
wouldn't
that.
exactly put it like that. See, I know nothing about nuclear physics. But nuclear energy I can still use in whatever little way I'm connected to it.
Right.
So koshas are like that. They are not particularly helpful to an average beginner, but some knowledge of it is still helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for perfect teaching, okay, which is not wrong. It's a very high caliber teaching, but I'm not looking at myself and saying, am I a student who is prepared for this?
So it's a way of avoiding self.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So if you really use the koshas, you have nothing but they're kind of a pathway to look at the self and nothing else.
Look at the self.
Right. You can't blame others or
And then that has a direct implication in life in general. Whenever I think outside is not perfect, okay, it's not a wrong desire to have the outside perfect.
Right.
But in the process, am I not looking at who I am?
Right. It's blaming things outside yourself for why you're not happy.
I think some divorces can easily be prevented by looking at that. I find a problem with my spouse. And if it's necessary, I need to get away from that problem if I can. But in the process, don't misinterpret that somehow I am perfect and the spouse is the problem. I am also not perfect. Now the two imperfections cannot get along. So it's okay to separate. But not by an assumption that I am perfect, the other person is not.
Right. So that's a very practical approach that anyone could use, really.
Yes, yeah.
And you would say that is a kosha model? So
It
to
is
speak?
kosha model.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said earlier, even a little bit of knowledge of
Right.
koshas would help me in this life.
So, okay, so you're a teacher, I'm a teacher, and I want to I want to introduce this to, for example, I'm part of a faculty of a teacher training program, and I want to introduce the koshas. Is there a particular interpretation or translation that you like? Like, what do you think is the best way to just give someone kind of a...
If you can get, you take Swami Dayananda's commentary on Taittiriya Upanishad.
Oh, okay.
Except that commentary includes a lot of other things. Okay? So to understand those, you might need help.
Okay.
To
But he defines each kosha, and
Yes.
yeah, and you like that translation.
And he does it in a gentle, humorous way. He is not, beating you up.
Right.
But he points out how quickly the mind makes a mistake.
Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you.
His ability to do this kind of teaching is just phenomenal. Like, he would start giving an example of something. That example leads to another example. That leads to a third step. In a process, he has gone so far off the original center that students sitting in the class have forgotten, like, where did he start? And yet, he will come right back to the center. Okay? Never ever loses that focus.
So halfway through, you think, "Oh my God, he's totally gotten off track," and
Yeah.
he hasn't at all.
He hasn't at all.
Okay. Well, I will look at that translation. Okay. All right. Well, nothing else on the koshas you want to say to us?
It's endless.
I know. Well, we just want some words of wisdom from you to chew on and
The words of
reflect.
wisdom come out by good student asking questions. Okay. I find that even in yoga classes that I teach, if people don't ask questions, my ability to teach is not as good
Right, because you don't know where they are.
because I don't know where they are.
Okay.
Whereas even if a person thinks like, this is not very important question, if they ask the question, that can start me off in a correct direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So have I asked you enough questions? Just to end there.
No more questions.
No more questions. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for talking to us today.